www.либертариан-партии.ру.
You see, indeed today I wanted to share something that is very, very interesting. Initially I was going to talk about something else, and then all of a sudden when I realized that, man, there's an old project that I stopped at 2011, and I should really look up the Canadian records and see what's going on. And today I'm going to show you that how the sun is affected by, is affecting a Canadian temperature record, for example. So it'll be a very, very interesting world premiere. We start with someone shall be nameless. I just want to categorically say that I don't think that humans are maggots that are defecates all over the environment, so I disagree. Another very important thing is about this CO2 gas or cow fart or what have you, is that somebody apparently invented his own private greenhouse effect. This greenhouse effect that they imagine is actually come in the form of the glass in the window that you were sitting in your car when you roll all your windows up, and it's becoming really hot because there are carbon atoms. Joking aside, by the way, if any one of those people who say those things retracted them, you know what? We kindly say thank you. But it has not been retracted. So I borrowed this graph from my good friend. I consider him the greatest Canadian climate scientist ever, Professor Christopher Essex from the University of Western Ontario. And this is the kind of problem. We're being told by movie star, we're being told by, I don't know, bartender, or being told by some kind of a quasi-geneticist that think that humans are maggots and all those things about climate. Boy, we're in serious trouble if we're going to keep playing along, okay? This is too serious of a problem. So that's basically where we are at, right? It's a cultural issue. It's a very serious educational miseducation issue. That people are selling you sugars with no carbon. Actually, this is why I recommend you to have Chris Hasek to speak here. He will show you a video where this Domino's sugar guy is pretty smooth, he's walking along and all that kind of thing, doing moon dance, saying that, you know what, we're going to sell you sugar with no carbon. Terrible. Let's go back to this slide just to remind you that's what it's all about, right? It's never about the science, but you know what, this is just the introduction, right? So give me like 5 minutes to introduce the topics. But then you all know that I'm somewhat famous, right? Because people protest. These are folks who protest for what I do. What did I do, actually? I didn't even know what I did. That is so bad. Hiding money inside my pockets and all those things. I have no idea. Oil coming out from my mouth. I don't know. They want to fire me. Okay, thank you very much. And then they want to hang me. That's another thing. First of all, I'm really stupid, by the way. The stuff that I tell you today is actually something that I would say I learned over 30 years. That's how serious this stuff. I think science is so serious that one should examine no rocks left untouched. You got to flip everything over and look at this and study and see what it's all about. So it took me that long to tell you this report tonight. And then, of course, this is how rich I am. This is one of my secret locations, my house. You know, I'm kind of loving guy, you know, that sort of thing. And then I show you my toilet, of course. Okay, it's almost over, the funny part. But anyway, the most important thing is that, you know, if I tell you, science is such a, you know, you are really conquering high, tall mountains, you know, because climate is a very complex issue, okay? I would have a slide like Timball made, actually, that you put up, you can show climatology. You will run out of fingers, run out of the tone, you know, to count how many aspects of scientific expertise require of you to learn something called the climate. It's a very simple proposition. If anybody in this room, including security guard, anybody, Trudeau, whoever, tell me, what is the difference between weather and climate? Please don't tell me that it's 30 years average. It's complete baloney, right? This is how hard the problem is, because we cannot even talk about those things properly. But the point I raise this thing is that when you are being attacked and then you are being supported by a guys like this. You may not know his name. His name is Friman Daison, right? I would consider him a pretty smart guy, okay? He's among the most, I would say, the living legend, really. This is the guy who knows that the 3 version of quantum mechanics is actually 1 version. He's the 4th guy that didn't win the Nobel Prize in 1965, right? Smart guy, Friman Daison, really good guy. So he really likes me that in the sense that he say, science is not getting along with these people, and Al Gore is beautiful, I'm ugly, and that kind of stuff. You know, Michael Mann. Oh, I'm not supposed to say Michael Mann, by the way, so we'll worry about being sued anyway. So the whole point is that one should really, really treat this issue rather seriously, okay? So let me start with something which I really want to go against those kind of things that say humans are basically maggots, right? Let's start with an atom. This is actually the size of nitrogen atom, right? 2 to the 10 to the minus 10 to the power of minus 10 meter, right? And then next one we talk about the size of the sun. 2 to the 10 to the 9. You all know what is in between these 2 scale? It's actually human. Roughly 2 meter. It's a bit tall, of course. I'm not taller than that. But it's an amazing thing. This human can think about stuff, can figure out how beautiful the whole universe is, right? No wonder, you know, the Bible actually has this phrase. I'm not so religious, by the way. I didn't know about this phrase for a very long time because at Harvard there's a Emerson Hall, Ralph Waldo Emerson Hall, philosophy department, that on the engraving is actually that phrase. I always was wondering, who is this guy who speaks that kind of language? It actually turns out that it came from the Bible, right? And then I'm going to start encouraging you with this slide by a guy named Michael Faraday. If you guys do not know him, he is what I would consider the greatest experimentalist in the 19th century. In fact, almost of all time, really. This Large Hadron Collider was done by 10,000 scientists, right? This one man alone find the effects of magnetic induction and so on and so forth. Basically electricity, right? And then when he speak about that, I think I like this phrase because it applies to the situation today. He said that I'm no poet, but if you think and think for yourself as I proceed, the fact will form a poem in your minds. I hope so tonight. So my goal is when you wake up tonight and you feel a little bit hot, you wake up from your dream, you don't start reciting Shakespeare. You think about the sun, okay? One last slide. This is a quote from Friman Daison, a guy that I really like because he writes extremely well and very clearly. He was basically describing this strange phenomenon that we are in now, right? That we're no longer talking about science, and then scientists who claim they are doing science are blind to the evidence. When they look at the thermometer record, they either change the record, they don't explain why they correct the record, they don't even explain why the thermometer record is good for you to study climate when it's putting near a exhaust vent. You know, this kind of problem is very serious. Maybe we shouldn't use that record, should we? Right? Unless you know how to correct for the effects and so on and so forth. Right? So it is not a scientific mystery in some sense, this problem of CO2 dilution, this attempt to demonize a molecule called CO2. Remember, if we allow them to do this one step, the next minute will be oxygen, yes? The next minute will be water, you know, this, whatever. We're going to be in really heap lot of trouble. I don't care about also how much money. This is why I'm kind of an arrogant guy, actually. When these people are trying to say, oh, we got to apply the economics argument, I understand we need the money, really. But it's still about the facts. If it's really bad, we have to say it's bad. But it is not bad. This CO2 is the gas of life. 40,000 parts per million, right? Here you all get excited, so in this room it's already 2,000, let's say, right? If you get a little bit more hotter when I started to do my dance, it's going to be 5,000, right? So let's go for it. It's really a problem that we're looking at a whole generation of people, whole generation of the public culture who are basically anti-science. We must not allow that to happen. Must not allow them to indoctrinate our kids with that kind of stuff, okay? It's garbage, really. And now let's stare at this picture for a few seconds, actually. It's a beautiful picture. It's actually one real picture taken from the Lagrangian point, which is about 1.5 million kilometers or 1 million miles away from Earth. It's a very stable region where you can really get the satellite to stay nicely thanks to gravity. And you're looking down on Earth. It's such a beautiful planet, actually, with the moon passing around. And then these people actually are accusing us for waking up every morning thinking about this and then trying to kill our own children, our own grandchildren, and doing all this back. But how dare you, actually? This is why I would never, never, never let them do that to us.
Yes, thank you.
And then you get a bunch of people who actually do science by press release. This is one of the famous cases, almost the origin of the story in 1988, published in the world famous newspaper, recycle kind of newspaper, New York Times. That, by the way, are the one that also attacked me because they colluded with Greenpeace. That at 1988, Susan, in 1988, right, they are 99% confident that they already found human fingerprint, the CO2 fingerprint, with that record. It's an unbelievable statement, actually, that is drawn completely out of garbage. He has no basis of making that statement. That's the first part. But then, let's move on. I want to counter him by saying that I'm 100% confident that you cannot find the CO2 fingerprint in this Canadian temperature record. So what is being plotted here is basically the daytime maximum temperature for about 100 years or so, and the daytime minimum temperature of Canada, right? What is superposed on that is that black curve that Mr. Hansen was basically plotting but updated to today, right? And that's the global temperature anomalies, which is a very strange kind of language that they always use. Here, the temperature that I show you is absolute units, really, right? 0 degree means that the water froze. 100 degree will be boiling. And to show you the range of Canadian temperature, it's roughly 50 degrees Celsius over the season, right? And then the fingerprint they want to ask you, even you give them 5 degrees Celsius warming, I think it's going to be really, really hard to say in some confidence that you actually can find CO2 fingerprint in this record. And then later, I will indeed show you that how you actually can see the sun in it, really, beside the seasonal cycle, isn't it? I hope everybody agree with that point, right? That is the point that I don't think any of them dare to fight us, really, okay? And then I'll show you further step. So let's think about the sun and the earth. This is just a very, to give a perspective. The sun is very big, the earth is small. Roughly, right? 110 times bigger than us. But it's not big and small that makes a difference. It's actually the energetics. In terms of powering ourselves, 99% of our energy comes from the sun. Nothing more. This is a bit of radiogenic heat. Everything that we have in our climate system is from the sun. And this CO2, by the way, I want to remind everybody, what it does is that it's not an energy source, it's not an energy sink. The only thing it ever does in the climate system is that it changes the rate of cooling, basically how our Earth system will cool itself. That is very, very different from saying that it's a heat source or a heat sink, right? Because if we have an ice age, you can tell Al Gore to breathe as hard as he can, and he can add anybody he wants. You won't be able to melt the ice sheets. Okay? It is only the sun that can do that.